Imagine spending 6 years in high school, passing nearly all of your exams, and then failing to get your high school diploma by just 0.1 of a point. Would you accept that, or would you be fighting it out in court? That's exactly what happened in this case. This is a very recent case. Let's unpack this one. First, I will present the key facts of this case and then move on to my analysis. This case took place in Utrecht, the Netherlands. An 18-year-old high school student named Lazar took his final exams this spring. His overall result? He missed passing his high school graduation diploma by just 0.1 of a point. The problem was with his Dutch language exam. Here's what happened. At first, examiners marked him down for 7 language errors, which meant the maximum penalty of deducting 4 points. During the exam inspection, when Lazar and his mother were allowed to review the exam, they saw that one of those errors, the so-called telegram-style error, was questionable. They believed it shouldn't have counted as an error. So Lazar filed a formal appeal. In the appeal process, the examiners actually agreed to give him the benefit of the doubt on 2 errors, this telegram-style error and another one, which would have reduced the error count from 7 down to 5, and that should have lowered the penalty from -4 to -3, giving him just enough to pass. But in the official appeal decision, something unexpected happened. The examiners also introduced 4 additional errors that had not been shown to Lazar at the exam inspection. These extra errors had not counted in the original grading because the maximum penalty had already been reached because of the first 7 initial errors. But once 2 of those 7 initial errors were removed on appeal, the 4 additional ones became relevant again. This brought the total up to 11 minus the 2 which have been removed, leaving 9 errors, which kept the penalty at -4 and left his grade unchanged. So the big question is all of this reasonable, fair, and legal? Well, here's the ruling from the court. On the 22nd of August 2025, the Utrecht District Court issued its judgment. The court found the appeal process to be grossly careless and ruled in favor of the student. In the published court decision, they explained their rationale. If the 4 extra errors were already known from the initial grading, they should have been shown to the student at the exam inspection. But they were not. And that meant the student was deprived of crucial information for filing his appeal. The student could not possibly appeal against something he didn't even know was graded as errors, and that was unfair to the student. On the other hand, if the 4 extra errors were not identified in the initial grading, but were only identified and added after the student had appealed, then the examiners had improperly regraded the entire exam, which is not allowed, because the review should have been limited to the disputed points only. In other words, if I appeal, you are only supposed to review the specific things that I am appealing against. You are not supposed to fully regrade my complete exam. So either way, the court ruled the appeal process was unfair and careless, and the student couldn't reasonably defend himself in such a process. Because of these flaws, the judge ordered the school to correct this student's Dutch exam grade upward, declare him passed, and issue his high school diploma no later than August 31st, 2025. If not, the school would face a penalty of 500 euros per day, up to 25,000. This is what has happened with this case as of the time I'm making this video. If the school board were to appeal against the district court's ruling, I will make further update videos on this case. Now let's move on to my analysis, which is just my opinion. There are a few points which I think are noteworthy from this case. First and foremost, the reason this case hits so close to home, at least for me, is procedural fairness. The judge found that the appeal process was not fair. For example, the 4 extra errors were not shown to the student at the exam inspection, and that meant he had no way to contest them because he didn't even know about them. And then, during the appeal process, once 2 of the initial 7 errors were corrected and removed, those 4 hidden errors were suddenly counted after all, which kept the overall grade the same. To me, this shows a deeper problem. In some schools, colleges, universities, and organizations in general, procedures get applied in ways that seem to follow the letter of the rulebook, but don't stand up to scrutiny. That, I think, is the real lesson for all educational institutes. Rules and procedures must not only appear correct on paper, they must also be applied and practiced in a transparent and fundamentally fair manner. Second, appeals should never feel like a trap. An appeal is supposed to give a student a fair second look, not turn into an ambush where errors that were never shown to the student at the exam inspection suddenly get used against you. If appeals work this way, then students will lose trust in the entire system because instead of feeling protected, the process feels rigged against them. I mean, have you ever heard students talk about the appeal procedure at their university like this? One student to another, "Oh, don't bother with the appeal, because when you appeal, you will probably get an even lower grade than your original one." When students talk like that and believe that, it is a sign that the system at that school isn't protecting fairness anymore. It is protecting something else. Finally, let's talk about precedent. Will every student who misses the cutoff by 0.1 of a point now run to court? Probably not. Courts only intervene in clear procedural flaws, not in ordinary grading disputes. Plus, lawsuits are stressful, expensive, and rare. In this case, the legal costs came to more than 1,600 euros. Fortunately, in this case, the court ordered the school to pay them, but that is still a big potential risk and burden for most private individuals. What this case does is that it sends a clear signal. If schools mishandle appeals or apply procedures carelessly and unfairly, judges can and will step in. And that possibility changes the balance of power. It reminds educational institutes that they are not above accountability. So these are my thoughts on the case of Lazar Babović. On my channel, and specifically in this playlist, we will cover more cases involving academic misconduct, academic disputes and lawsuits, and other higher education controversies. If you find these topics interesting, please stay tuned. I invite you to leave your thoughts and comments about this case down below. Thanks for watching this Ranywayz random video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.